Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Advertising That Works, Smarter Media Strategies for Furniture Retailers. I'm Pete Theron, the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and I'll be your host for this insightful session presented by the Home Furnishings Association. In today's crowded media landscape, it's not about spending more. It's about spending smarter in a very complex and rapidly changing media environment. Over the next hour, we'll explore how to choose the right channels, maximize ROI, and create campaigns that stand out and truly connect with your target customers. We'd love for this to be a highly interactive session and encourage you to post questions throughout the conversation using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many of the questions as we can. But before we get started, a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is recorded and will be available for on demand at myhfa.org/webinar. If you have questions, please use that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And we want to thank Synchrony, our education through thought leadership sponsor, for their dedication to the industry and support of these webinars. All right, so now let me introduce our panelists. We're joined by three outstanding panelists who each bring a unique perspective on media and advertising strategy. First, we have Jennifer Johns, Vice President of Elevate Marketing Research with nearly 30 years of experience in business development and marketing. Jennifer brings a research-driven approach to uncovering consumer sensitivities and purchase drivers that help brands fine-tune messaging and boost results. Next, we have Cody Fitzgerald, founder and CEO of Omni Digital Group. Since 2017, Cody has been helping retailers grow through data-driven marketing, specializing in strategies that deliver measurable and trackable results. And finally, we have Daryl Dahlberg, brand partnerships at Orbit Interactive. Daryl is a seasoned digital marketing leader who helps bridge traditional and digital advertising, focusing on optimizing marketing investments and making ad dollars work smarter. So we have a lot to cover. Let's jump right in. The first thing we really want to talk about, and under the heading of how to evaluate and balance your media mix for the best ROI, is when retailers are trying to figure out if their media mix is really working, what are the key factors they should be evaluating?
I'm going to jump in here on that and just say that with the media, this is a very loaded question, by the way. I want to take a step, go up here and just say, we got to look at the marketing funnel, right? There's a lot of times that our retailers are just buying marketing from their, a rep might come in, but they don't look at the marketing funnel. Where do things fit, right? Are you top heavy? Are you bottom heavy? Now, when we really look at it, your radio, your TV, your direct mail, newspaper, top funnel. Then we get to the middle side of it where we have some retargeting, some social media. Then the bottom where Google claims everything, which isn't true, but you have Google Shopping, Meta Dynamic, and so forth. So you really have to build out that funnel to know where things are being placed. Otherwise, you're going to get very heavy at the top or very heavy at the bottom, and no one's being talked to in the middle, right? So when I'm working with different retailers, I asked that question, where are you spending your money? Because I can help you and really look at how to get the transparency out of the dollars. There's certain products that don't give us a lot of data, and there's certain products that give us a lot of data, like, if something is in Google. So it's really just kind of getting that mix. And I'll tell you right now out of the gate, it's 70 to 75% digital, right? That's where the money's going. It can be attributed, you can see it in your analytics and so forth.
Yeah, and I'll just add, just to kind of back up as it relates to that funnel, because I think you're right, Daryl. That is such a critical piece to everything that we need to be looking at and evaluating today. For clarity, the top of the funnel is, where you're generating your overall awareness when people are just starting to sort of think about, maybe I'm going to refurnish my living room, right? That's where you're going to capture them, is with those top of funnel tactics, your television, your billboards, things like that. That mid funnel area, to Daryl's point, is where people start to compare you, and it's where you have the opportunity to really earn trust and give your why as to why you would be the optimal choice for them. And then you have that bottom funnel. This is when people are ready to buy. So here's where the conversion takes place. And we see a lot of, like Daryl probably does as well, a lot of inequity in terms of where the budget is being balanced across that funnel. Um, we know that, to Daryl's point, digital is huge. So you need to be placing at least 30% of your budget at the bottom of the funnel. The question then becomes, what's the allocation at the mid and the top funnel? And oftentimes what can help drive that is understanding what is your level of awareness in the market. So if you're not very well known, then we might need to play that long game a little bit and do more top of funnel. So there's a lot to evaluate, and partners like Daryl and Cody and myself can really lean in and help you get an understanding as to how you're performing in the market today with some metrics.
So when
Yeah,
you
and
look
just
at that funnel, oh, go ahead, Cody.
I was just gonna, yeah, just to build off of one thing Jennifer just said. I mean, I think it really does come down to how well you're known in your marketplace. I mean, I think I've spent a lot of time, I feel like, especially in the last 18 months, more so than I have in my 9-year career, is just talking to people about branding versus sales. And I think like in a market, most retailers struggle with what type of, and we're a 100% digital shop. So I kind of speak of it from an evergreen approach of just the content you can create that just in a non-salesy way talks about that you exist, right? And what type of service offerings do you have, product offerings, categories within your store, and just who are you as a brand, as a retailer? How long have you been in business? You know, how many employees do you have? What are you known for? Like those top of funnel things that just also do it in a different way, because every single retailer out there is constantly just talking about the products they have, the sales they're having, that type of thing. And I think your content, and specifically that top of funnel approach, specifically within digital, just gives you a really interesting way to separate yourself. And then as you go down that funnel, as people engage with your videos, your graphics, your events on digital, you can really drive home that you have this brand, that you have this promotion, that you have this sale this weekend. And I think it just has a nice two-prong approach so that people are seeing two different types of major messaging. And that's kind of something I've really driven home. And to Daryl's point of getting to that really bottom funnel where they're going to be making a decision very quickly. Because I think it's something like, you never know how accurate stats are, but it's something like 2% of the market is actually in market for a product right now. So that means 98% aren't. So you can't just be drilling home sales all the time. So I think within media mix, it's also in your content mix as well, not just the actual advertising platform itself of just how to be evaluating it for sure.
There's that phrase, content is king, and just we're going to probably get into this later, but don't be afraid to record yourself and use yourself in your videos. I mean, we're very apprehensive on that, but we'll get into that in a second. But the
Yeah.
other part of that is, we build out the marketing funnel. We look at the products and where they're laying, but then we have to factor in, how do we know which ones we want to use? And I'm going to post some questions out there. People write them down. Is when you look at the ROI or the ROAS, the return on investment or return on ad spend, how are you quantifying, that piece of marketing? Where that is it going to give you that? Yes or no, and go through there. Are you looking at your Google Analytics and be able to see that information come through? I have more new users this month versus last month. I'll tell you, traditional media is really hard to quantify that because there's nothing to click on that drives a website, but they land in organic. So did your organic lift, right? How long are they on the website? How many pages deep are they going? If it's only one page deep, that's homepage, but we're furniture. So we should be 4 or 5 pages deep, right? We're looking through products. We're trying to figure out our find. And then does your website really give you the connection of revenue? If you're built on Shopify, WooCommerce, or BigCommerce, or any of those platforms, you can get a lot of data out of that. Whereas some other websites that are very just more like landing pages, you can't get a shopping experience out of that. And then last but not least, I always say this to clients is, do you see the data? Because we're all data driven. All of us on this call we literally can go blind and not know who the client is and give evaluations on what that campaign is doing without even knowing who it is, just by the data that's being presented to us. So those are a couple of factors to start thinking about when you're looking at that marketing funnel. Bottom funnel stuff has a lot of data. Top funnel stuff, not as much. So you kind of have to weigh that in.
Yeah, the top funnel is tough because it's pretty pricey to advertise up there. And, at the end of the day, it's such a critical piece, but how we measure it is really difficult. One of the ways that we see our retailers successfully measure this is with foot counters. So if you don't have a foot counter solution, I would highly recommend looking into something like that. And then to Daryl's point, another way to sort of, watch this is obviously look at your analytics, your Google Analytics, your website analytics, to understand, what kind of spikes are you potentially seeing when you are turning on that top of funnel media play.
Yeah. I
Jennifer,
think
earlier, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question. Earlier, you referred to you referred to bottom of funnel and talked very specifically about digital being the play. What were you referring to when you're talking about top of funnel more specifically?
Yeah, so top of funnel can include, and it depends, right? It depends on who we're reaching, who we want to connect with. So, first and foremost, you need to know your persona. Who is your target customer that you want to go after? Because where you're going to capture them at top, mid, and bottom funnel may be very different from a different target that you have. So understand who you're going after, but typically top of funnel is going to be things like your traditional broadcast or your streaming television, billboards, radio, even social media. We're seeing funnel from a mid funnel tactic it used to be to now it's really top funnel, especially for a number of different demographics.
Okay, so more traditional, or if you want old school media, which is more broadband and creates awareness.
And
Sure.
most of us won't discount those traditional medias, because if they didn't work, you wouldn't have Coca-Cola and Pepsi spend a lot of money at it, right? So
Yeah.
these major players know where the money needs to land.
But you should also be looking at streaming television specifically because, number one, for the first time in history back in May, it surpassed impressions and viewership over traditional broadcast. And two, it's very targetable. So you have the ability to go in and select specific demo types based off of lifestyle and a number of different aspects that you can then place very niche specific messaging to as well. So, the marketers that we work with who are starting to play in this are seeing pretty strong return there. I think like a safe number that you can expect is really kind of like a 5 to 1 in terms of a return on your investment if you're doing it right.
And it's
yeah, and I'll hit
trackable too. You can track the revenue as well.
on one data point as well that I love that we focus on with our clientele is, and I don't know exactly what it'd be for the furniture space, but across all of our retail clients that we work with in 7 or 8 different industries, 59% of customers only shop one time at a retailer. And that's across about 1 million consumers that we looked at across about 50 clients. And looking at it, it's just that kind of bottom funnel. If you figure nobody knows about you at the top, all the way down to the bottom, they purchase, but then that cycle rinses and repeats. The thing I'm most bullish on is first party data and just getting back in front of your existing clients, as well as most of these platforms have had AI capabilities for a decade now of just using your data and the data you have in your point of sale system, matching that information to a Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. Every platform has it. I don't think there's one that doesn't have where you can take your point of sale data, match those people to actual profiles on the platforms, and you can target them with ads, but you can also say, go find me more people in my area that look like these people.
Mhm.
And that's going to be income levels. That's going to be purchase habits. That's going to be things they engage with. It's so many different things. So I think that's another intelligent way, especially with digital, to look at it is just how efficient are you spending the money? I know our next question is going to be around spend, but I think the spend efficiency is also really big, and just how well is it working? And you'll know within about 60 days if something is working very well. But
Absolutely.
I think just taking that first party data and getting back in front of them, as well as just using it to find more new customers in your areas, is big.
Cody brought up a really great point. I'll tell you that furniture consultants are telling us now that it's 2.3 visits for furniture. It used to be 5. As I say, I grew up in an Ethan Allen store, so we went there 27 times as my mom designed, her house. But we, call it the 90s, 2000, and before this really big digital push, people are shopping 5 stores. Right? They're down to 2 to 3. So if your close ratio is not 50%, it's like going to a car lot. Buying furniture is no different than buying a big purchase. You're over it after the second visit. You're like, let's just make a decision. We've spent so much time on this. So, very good close ratio is going to start becoming where we were at 25, 30%. We're going to be closer to 50%. Half your customers walking are going to should be closed because they ain't coming back.
That's it's so interesting that you correlated the um, furniture buying with the car buying process, because we just got out of field on a national study. We surveyed a little over 1,200 Americans who are planning to buy furniture or had just purchased furniture in the last year. And what they told us, 80% of them said that they were relieved when the process was over.
Uh,
It's, it's so overwhelming for them. Like we need to find a way to make this a more enjoyable experience.
absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much engagement in the process, particularly if your design is more complex. What is the best way to keep people comfortable through the entire thing? That is the goal of engagement, is make people comfortable and confident and not afraid to say yes, which is that's not a simple thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so we've kind of talked about how the funnel works, and we'll come back to some real discussion about the strengths and weaknesses of strategy there. But let's take a step back in the process. You're starting with a blank sheet of paper as a retailer, and you're trying to figure out what is the right spend? What supports my business? What's not too little? What's not too much? How do you try to drill down on what the right spend is to support your business?
Well, we see in this space specifically that marketers should be spending at least 8 to 10% of their annual revenues on advertising. And that includes everything, from the media that you're buying to maybe any kind of creative production that you need to develop, agency fees, research, things along those nature. But 8 to 10% is where we see the sweet spot being with the retailers we work with.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, I was gonna say 6 to 10. So yeah, that 8 to 10, it just, I think, is then looking at the allocation of probably digital versus traditional, new customers versus existing. It's kind of coming up with like your big buckets, kind of like you were saying, Peter, that blank sheet of paper. What are you going to spend to go reacquire customers? What are you going to go spend to acquire brand new customers online, in store? So I think it's just kind of thinking of your major buckets of where you want to spend money and then allocating. I think Jennifer just hit on a great point that I think is, in my opinion, for every vertical of retail, I think it's the biggest opportunity is spending a little bit of money on great creative production. I think because that's just going to enhance and amplify when, having the great voiceovers for radio, having the great ads for
You mean
Facebook.
like the content, Cody, is what you're talking about? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Just having really high quality production, and we live in a world now where it also it needs to be the right length with the right hooks at the beginning, and we'll get into that in a second too, with the ads themselves. But specifically on budget, paying some money to actually have a video team, photographers actually come in and produce high quality content, I think would be a good use of funds.
So when it comes to the budget, I think we're all going to be in agreement on the 8% level. Um, Theoretically, or more specifically, I hear a lot 5 to 8%. And it's such a broad number because I push more towards 10%, because we can do so much more with the dollars when things can be, the data can be seen. But when you really look at that number, it's all marketing, 5 to 8%, but it's pretty broad. But the 5% is a mature, very well branded, very market dominated type furniture store that doesn't have to, they don't have to shake the tree as much to get the almonds to fall, if you want to use an ag term. But if you're newer and you don't have market dominance and you're out there battling it out every day, then you're going to have a little bit higher on the budget. So when it comes to it, small markets typically about $2,500 a store. Larger markets can range anywhere between $4,000 to $8,000 a store. Just depends on how big your market is. I deal with the top 100 retailers, and they're averaging that would be $6,500 a store on a large scale. These are large markets, so it's highly impactful in their zone. So it's a depends thing, but I'll say this: at the end of the day, when we work with clients, we're not here to spend your money. You have to come up with a dollar amount and say, here's what we think. We will give you your best recommendation. All of us here, it says, well, you're a little thin, or that will actually work, and we can actually add in more digital, or we can use another tactic. But going through that market budget process is definitely a plus, instead of just putting money out there. It's like really be defined on what we're going after on the budget.
So all of you seem to be in violent agreement about where the right place is to start. The blank sheet of paper example, you all said, well, it's roughly this number. And then you work from there to create your business plan. Everybody has a different way of doing that. Okay. What do you do in a more reactive situation? So sales have suddenly become very challenged. You've got a budget. Marketing in anybody's P&L is a big chunk. So and the P&L is being strained. What's the best way to respond when your business is challenged and you're looking at marketing and saying, what's the best decision for my business here?
I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
think
think, go ahead, Trevor. You go.
I was just going to say you really need to look at the tactics that are working and be willing to swiftly move away from those things that aren't, and maybe reinvest those dollars to where they're working. So that goes back to what we were just talking about with regards to what are you doing to attribute ROAS and or return on investment against that media spend for you. So making sure that you are working with maybe any of your media partners. A lot of them have what we call matchback solutions, so that you can be identifying what that looks like, getting those door counters in place. There are a number of different technologies out there today that can help you make sure that you're getting that attribution back. And then just, you got to watch it.
Yeah, and I would say two specific answers would be, because I was just talking to a client on this the other day, is be sure you're getting all and every penny you can of co-op, every penny, because that's just money that you're owed based on your volume buys. So I think that's oftentimes I talked to a large retailer that has 80 locations, and they said that, like, yeah, 65% of their money they just don't even get. And I'm just like, why? I mean, for them, that's probably millions of dollars. So just get after that co-op. And then to Jennifer's point, the average frequency or reach to impressions has gone up drastically for how many times somebody needs to see an ad before they convert. So to Jennifer's point on going all in on what's working, something as simple as just targeting that traffic on Google, and specifically digital with Facebook and different platforms that have already been to your website. They're just organically looking for furniture retailers and going all in on those individuals versus people that just aren't even in market. They're not even looking. They're not doing any research. That would probably cut your budget in half, but also still be very effective if you just went after those people. And then, of course, existing customers, but specifically for new, which is what so many retailers want. I think that retargeting approach Daryl said at the beginning is highly effective, and your budget can be a lot lower.
We've all seen the board game Mousetrap, right? Where you jump around the board and you try to capture that is the game of digital right now. Our consumers are running everywhere. So I like to say that we want to be omnipresent. We want to be present everywhere. If the budget allows us, we'll get into everything and see what works, and then cut where we can attribute a sale or we can attribute a ROAS to. So being everywhere. But Pete, to your point, is we're dancing around the very question everyone's asking right now is, what happened to the traffic after Labor Day? Yes, it tanked for everyone. It's across the board. So you're not the only one. If you're listening today, it's not you. It's all the markets. You can go to Google Trends. You can see it. to be reactive is really just pushing into what's working, where we can get it. I had one client come to me and say, I just want more Google. I want more Google. I said, doesn't matter how much I spend in Google. Look at what I can't get you to serve anymore. There's nothing left. It fell off. It's coming back now this week. But for 2 weeks after Labor Day, we took everyone out of the market. And just one last point of that, when we have these big tentpole events, President's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day, et cetera, we pull a lot of people out of the market, right? As retailers, you're not the only one advertising that you have a sale. So does the auto guy, so does the med spa, so does, medical services, you name it, it all had a sale, and then the market, took the dollars out. So we're battling for that as well. So we're just not only trying to get the consumer for furniture, but we have to compete against the auto dealer that wants him to buy the $70,000 truck too. So reactive in a way of saying what's working and then cut what's not working right now. We can go back to it. It doesn't say that we can't use it. We just know that purpose was for a branding mechanism or an awareness campaign versus I need shoppers and I need them now. And the only dollars I will pay for is if the behavior says when I click on it, I'll pay for it. And for me, I do that all day. I will pay for that behavior all day, right? You showed me the traffic. So reactionary, that's kind of where we're falling into right now the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, these are great. I mean, the primary things we've talked about is dig harder in your analytics, make
Absolutely.
sure you're supporting those things that do work. And Cody, you raised a good point. Make sure you've squeezed every drop of water out of that co-op towel. I mean, to the very best of your ability. Marketing budgets are so vulnerable when sales are challenged because usually the only things that are greater spends are personnel, got to keep them, and your real estate costs. Well, those aren't flexible. Okay. So it's the first big budget item that is flexible. So the key is defending it and driving business. So key insights into consumer motivations and buying behavior. Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about consumers have more choices than ever? What are some of the biggest motivators influencing furniture purchases right now?
Yeah, a lot of different triggers, right? That accelerate that buying process. What our research that we just came out of field in, literally at the very end of August, told us is that the top three reasons why people are looking to shop for furniture today are: one, over half of them are wanting to simply upgrade their furniture and their homes. Two, 45% of them told us that they're looking for something that's a little bit more functional. And comfort is a really big piece of this for them today. And then the third piece is that they're planning a remodel. So those, like, when you're thinking about what's happening in their lives, those are the three key triggers according to our research today. And then beyond that, when you're thinking about, well, what do we message? How do we influence these individuals to choose my store versus somebody else? Again, that's going to really all depend upon who you're going after, because there are a lot of different personas. In our research, we found like 10 different personas that exist out there. But looking at the one that is the largest, we call them the value-driven skeptic over here at Elevate. The key elements for them are quality and durability, selection and price, um, and warranty guarantees. Those are table stakes. Like, you just have to talk to those things. They're really critical in order to capture individuals' attention. We found too that discounts are more attractive than financing today, which I found kind of interesting. But discounts are where people are looking. That's what they're looking for. And interestingly, across all demos, high income, minorities, women, people under the age of 35. So discounts are winning the race right now over financing messaging. And really, really important, and if you're going to write anything down in this webinar from me, write this down: your sales experience. It's so critical that you hone in on what it's like to buy from you. Why should people buy from you? Buyers are looking for a low pressure sales experience. And unfortunately, they don't feel like they're getting it at the brick and mortar level. So it's important that we really pay attention to that, because I have a stat. 87% of people feel excited about buying new furniture, but half say that that excitement disappears once the process begins. And remember the stat I mentioned earlier, 80% of people are relieved. That's the emotion they feel when they're done with the process. They are relieved it's over. So we got a joy gap here. That's what we're calling it at Elevate. There's a real joy gap. So how do we dial down that pressure? How do we invite people into our showrooms? If we can do that, we win. We're pushing people to online, right? Because of the convenience, because it's a low sales pressure experience. But our research shows that even the youngest of demos, even the youngest of consumers and buyers, they want to come in the store because they want to measure things. They want to touch it. They want to sit on it, right? They want to envision what it's going to feel like in their space. So that's the deal breaker. You win. You beat Wayfair and Amazon if you can bring people into the store and meet them with an experience that they want.
You bring
So,
up the joy gap, and I'm smirking over here because I remember when I live in Dallas, and Nebraska Furniture Mart, you walk in, there's a bar. Living Spaces has built bars in
yes,
their furniture stores now. Like literally, like how do we make them happy? So
absolutely.
Well, and it's
you know
like,
the
it's,
you
go
bring
ahead.
up one last point here is prices seem to be a big factor right now because people see value in price. They knew what a sectional was, and then if you say, oh, it's on this, we're doing it for this, they might get a little excited there. But we had a Pinterest on one of these webinars. It was a Pinterest rep a couple months ago came on and said, a lot of the upgrade, what you just said was no more gray because everyone bought gray couches. I own one, like no more gray. So now,
Mm.
now they're looking for other colors in their house besides what we all got when we tried to buy furniture during the pandemic. There wasn't a lot of selection, so everything was,
Yeah.
very simple colors. Now it's, they're flipping it to what they want. Cody, you had something?
I was just gonna say it, the car dealership example's been brought up a couple times, and I read this book a couple times, but it's called Endless Customers. And in it, he goes through a case study of maybe just in your heads right now. Think of the largest used car dealership in the world. Can you name them? It's CarMax. And the reason they're so good is they do five specific things, and I won't cover all of them, but just Google it. CarMax, unique things they do in the selling process and reinvent. Like if I was a retailer today working with hundreds like I have over the years, the products very similar, store layout, very similar. Like everything's very, very similar with the experience. And, call a spade again. I've worked with like 10 different retail verticals. Most of them think they're different. They're not. CarMax did something actually different. And they do billions of dollars in used car sales. And they truly did different things. So figure out what are like three things that we could do that no other furniture retailer is doing. You do that, you're going to stick out, give people a good experience to Jennifer's point. Cause all those things are like, you're probably even like myself. I'm like, even nodding my head, putting myself in your guys' shoes. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they're all simple things, but just figure out how to disrupt that process, make it fun. And just look up the CarMax example though. It's pretty good.
But look,
Here's
you know what
something.
I'd like to kind of follow up on is Jennifer talked about talking about things that actually matter to the customer. And Cody talked about think of things no one else is doing. How do you knit those two thoughts together? So you're doing something no one else is doing, and it actually moves that. I mean, don't be different just to be different. I mean, does it actually matter? So any thoughts on that? I mean, because everyone wants to rise above the noise level, be
I think
different, great, but do it in a way that resonates. What does that mean?
I think one thing that would be super simple to do, and Jennifer, I'd be curious to hear your perspective on this, but in the book Story Brand by Donald Miller, he recommends breaking down your sales process, even though it might be 17 steps, breaking it down to 3 steps for the customer because it reduces that friction. It sounds simple, and it is simple. Like your guys' process, it probably is simple. So if you, going back to what I said in the first question, if you came up with what is our 3-step process from the time somebody walks in to the time they walk out purchasing our furniture, what are those 3 steps? outline that to people. Maybe hand them something, put them at ease. Talk about that in your messaging. Talk about, to Jennifer's point, we have a very easy process here, very low pressure. Like saying that in your messaging, I think based on our research, I think that would really land with people, but making that physical, like giving customers something they can see, alluding to your process, I think would be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in our research, we see, and really this is across a variety of different categories. And what we say, what we've coined over here at Elevate is that the process is the product. Because people are really looking for transparency today. They're very skeptical. They came out of the pandemic and they're just they've got a little bit of a harder shell today than they ever have before. So they're skeptical. And the way that you break through that and earn their trust is with transparency in your process, in your return policies, in your pricing. And again, that lack of sales pressure is such a key critical piece. But Peter, I think your question was, how do we know? Like, how do we know how to differentiate ourselves? And my answer to that is ask the consumer. Do your research. If you're going to spend, 6 to 10% on your marketing, 6 to 10% of your revenue earnings on marketing, wouldn't you want to know what matters to them? Find out first. Do the research. Let's hear from the consumer in their own voice what matters to them. How you could set up a store that would be something that would be pleasurable. What kinds of experiences can you provide? Let's go back in and let's measure against our current customer base. What is our level of satisfaction? What was that experience with them? If we can do some investigating on the front end, anything that we do on the back end is going to be successful.
So
Yeah.
I have to do a plug here for the HFA webinars or the seminars that we hold in High Point. There's a recording of me doing a brainstorming session. If you want to learn how to brainstorm within your company, I help your marketing team unlock that to come up with something that's unique, custom, and effective. A couple ideas that came out. One, I sat in a symposium for a buying group, and one lady said, we put video games on walls around the stores so the men go off and just go play Pac-Man while the women can shop. I was like, that is genius, right? It's no different than genius of IKEA. It's like, it's a man store. No one bothers me. I just walk right through it. So that was a really unique idea. But if you watch that video, I did a brainstorming session for one of the clients, and we came up just everybody in the room made this up. I just helped them get it out of their head. Was a paint night for women, which we want women in the stores. And then we were going to donate the money to a nonprofit, which was then the charity piece. And then if we painted something, then we digitized it and sold the frame to raise money for the charity, right? So this whole loop, and it was really a girls' night out. So now you get 50 women to walk into the store, hang out, socialize, and nonprofits involved, and they're in the back part of your store because you never want to put anything in the front, right? So you put in the back part of the store and they walk by all your furniture and then walk right back through, and then they get talking and they go sit on. You just created a moment, an experience. No other furniture store is doing that because you came up with the idea. So there is a webinar on how to unlock that. But being unique and different, differentiation definitely helps versus, as one of you said, is, well, you're all selling the same product. It's homogenized at this point, like couch, different brands, quality, and so forth. But we're all looking for a sofa, right? Which
Great.
one's better?
That's bringing the joy back.
Yep. And to your point there, the friction in the process creates the frustration. The frustration gets the consumer to leave.
Our audience, depending on what type of furniture they're selling, what kind of price points drive their business, how much design is part of what they do, will have big differences in how long the sales cycle is. And some, as Jennifer talked a little bit, is there's a lot of data that shows for many, the sales cycle has gotten shorter, but for others at the more premium, you hear a lot the sales cycle's gotten longer. It takes a long time for customers to make a decision that involves a lot of money and elaborate decisions. How would you speak to how you market to those customers with a longer sales cycle? Like, how do you speak to them in a way that keeps them interested and willing to take that on?
I'm going to jump in and just talk about a tactic that we work with a lot of retailers is to say that, that there's people in market, there's what X amount of people in the market, you're driving traffic to the website, and then you're going to retarget them. And they might, I would say this is, don't use the same creative that you got the consumer to the website as you continue to market to them at 9 o'clock at night when they're on Facebook or whatever, like the same style, come up with something different. You gotta be able to tell your story. If someone's in a long sales cycle, they're in research for a reason. They want to know, they're going, oh, I'm looking for industrial farmhouse, I'm looking for modern or contemporary. They're running down these rabbit holes, but you're one of 54 other people they're looking at. So how do you bridge the gap of, I'm the brand that you want to go to? With that longer sales cycle, yeah, you're going to have branding pieces in there. They're going to have to know your story, that you're an 85-year-old company, that grandfather, started it when he was 19 years old, driving a high point, kind of picking it up and driving it back to Ohio or in Virginia, things like that, that kind of really identify that you're different. One thing that I'm starting to see now is we see a lot of online stores popping up that are faceless, meaning you don't know who the owner is. There's a lot of deception. I don't know if I'm gonna buy from them and so forth. So you guys have a really good opportunity to say, I'm local, I'm a retailer, I live here, I'm in my community. And then as I say, it's a dartboard. As they get closer to the bullseye, they know who you are, and their selections have become minimal to come see you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was going to say this is where your mid funnel really comes into play. This is when you need to like double down in that arena, because this is where people fall in love with you. Remember, it's where they're comparing you, they're considering what are all my options. So you need to have a really heavy presence, typically on social media, YouTube, like, provide them with, inspiration, before and afters, testimonials of other people's experiences, direct mail campaigns. Be very targeted in your approach here, but just to kind of keep them falling in love with you. It's a dating game, right? This is that courtship.
here's my write this down, and like Jennifer said earlier, if you take one thing away, is here's what I want you to do for the next month. I want you to just do two things. All you got to do, three things. One, number
One,
one,
two,
get
three.
a,
It
get
keeps
a Google
going.
Doc.
A
Get a
lot of
Google Doc.
things.
Blank
Yeah.
Google Doc. Get a blank Google Doc. Number one, just, your owner, your GM, whatever. Number two, have all of your sales associates at the end of the day write down all the questions they got that day from consumers. Then the third one, create videos answering those questions. Run them as paid ads and organic content. That's a strategy we've implemented with 7 or 8 clients over the last year, and it has gone bonkers good, like so good. Because to Jennifer's point, it's literally just listening to the consumer. Like if they come in and like, what's the difference between this couch and that couch? There's a question. Compare brand A to brand B. Do a video on it. Brand A has this, this, and this. They're priced because of this, this, and this. And brand B, run that as an ad. Like it literally is such a simple strategy, because I feel like even myself, when we think about creating content for people, the reason we came up with this concept was because it's so tiring thinking about all the different content you can potentially make. This just makes it super simple. So blank Google Doc, have your sales associates gather at the end of the day, write down those questions, create videos of it, run them as paid ads on all these platforms. It's a simple strategy, but I think highly effective.
And that's in-store questions. If you want the Google questions, there's a tool called answerthepublic.com by Neil Patel. He is a very good SEO strategist, and he has a little widget that will pull the who, what, when, where, why, how about furniture, and you just create content about all the questions that are being asked in Google, right? It all comes forward. It's like, what is a warranty? How long does it take to ship from the manufacturer to my house? Or what? All these questions that are being asked that you and I do not see on a daily basis, but it's pinging search engines all the time. So there's a tool as well. But I like Cody's as well, as to say, have our employees help us out on getting the content ideas.
Content is hard. I think that that's a real pain point for a lot of retailers out there. If I could see a show of hands, I'm sure every hand would come up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the name of the game today. We have to have new content pretty regularly. But I think that there's maybe a few things, Daryl and Cody, we can all share that to help people feel a little bit less overwhelmed by that.
Mhm.
We talked earlier about like the quality of your production. At the top of funnel with your, with your television, video advertising, it needs to be polished. Don't get me wrong. It needs to be really good, high quality. But what we're doing sort of here in the mid funnel can be a little bit more raw, right, guys? And and also, we see a lot of people, unfortunately, being like, oh, my niece just graduated from college and she's going to run our social media department.
Yeah.
I would caution you from doing that. I mean, the stakes are too high, and there are so many operators out there that can affordably help you on a monthly basis pull together a plan. And so you might want to consider looking into a service like that because it is a huge lift and you have to run a business. So are there people out there that can help you? And, between the three of us, I'm sure we can hook you up with the right kind of folks. So.
I led into one point, and I want to talk about this is uh, putting yourself in the video. If you're the business owner, it's okay to be the face of it. Your generational, furniture company. I had a client that was very apprehensive on it. 3 calls later, I kept saying, "You're good," and they're in the rug pad business, so it's ancillary to furniture. But they, I said, record yourself when you're at these conventions and these places that you're, showcasing. Finally, I got him to do it, and he did it. And I went literally in Meta. I went from a 1.5 click through rate to a 13%. And I sat down and said, see the difference? They want to know who you are. I
Yeah.
said, your ad efficiency, the spend right there, just 10x on you real quick. Like I don't have to try hard anymore to try to get somebody to see what, to shake the tree and say, hey, look at me. We literally cut right through. They love you. They're going to see you at the next event. They'll see you in High Point. Why not be the face, right? And I had another client in California that I did the same thing. Hey, do it and see what happens. All of a sudden, they have the best retargeting click-through rates that I can't match it, but they've done so well at it. They've figured out the video on it. So I guess my thing is don't be afraid to be a part of your own company that you've built or be the face of it. Or if your son or daughter is now going to be, you can work that into it. Don't run from it is where I'm going with it.
I am going to put a little bit of a precautionary tale
Yeah.
on that because I have the data to prove it. Not everybody should be a spokesperson,
Yes.
but we can figure out who's best.
Who?
So
Yep.
it probably makes sense to invest in some what we call spokesperson testing. Should it be dad? Should it be the son? Should it be the
Yep.
daughter? Should it be everybody? How are you resonating and with who? Who do you resonate? Maybe dad is in the ads that are targeted towards, the older boomer generation, and the kids are targeted towards that younger Gen Z millennial group. This is where now all of a sudden we can make sure that we're really engaging and connecting. But we need to test and see,
Yep.
are we turning people off? Do they trust us? Um, how do we coach around that? And we can do that, right? Like look into the camera, are our shoulders square? Like there's a lot of different tips that we can bring to the table if we evaluate the spokesperson. But
Testing's key. Yep.
testing is key. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine
it's
too.
oftentimes people you think as highly charismatic as really magic face to face don't translate on camera.
Yep.
So you have to evaluate them on camera. You can't make that decision based on what kind of charismatic individual they are otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
so
I would
we
recommend just
we've
one
talked a lot
rule.
about how content is king and content is hard. Too, okay, but still, there's no way around it. But let's get to a very specific part of it is so furniture is a very crowded marketplace. Many of the ads start to look alike, person standing in the middle of a beautifully furnished room talking about great prices on furniture, for example. But what can retailers do to avoid blending into that kind of sea of sameness in furniture retail?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, I only have one thing to say. Just buy the book Endless Customers because it gives you I've read dozens of marketing books in my career. Most of them are crap. And this book in particular just gives you the absolute playbook for exactly what you just said, Pete. And I think it is the most important thing because I've seen it in the companies we work with and the companies that I'm a partner in. It is all about the content. And this gives you a way to differentiate because so few people create content like this. Um, for example, right? And I gave a little bit of an example earlier, but if you think about when somebody is looking for furniture, right? To Daryl's point, you think about they're probably asking questions on Google like this brand versus that brand versus this brand. Why does this one cost this? Why does that one cost that? When you think about just answering those customer questions, it's hard because it's not just the rah-rah and like the sale and the pricing. Like you have to really, know your stuff and do the research. And I think if people buy this book, it just again it gives them the playbook. It's very retail oriented too. It's not dedicated just to retailers, but I think it would just give people a massive separation of their content in a noisy marketplace, of content that people are making. So I can't put it any more simply than that. Just go buy that book, read it, and just implement it. It's really good.
Sea of
Well,
I think
sameness. I love that. I'll just say, Jennifer brought up something really good about the personas. All your contents can be different for different personas. We touch on that, who you're, if it's an ethnic play or gender play and so forth, where you want your content to go. The sea of sameness gets caught. I see it all the time where they send me one creative for everyone. Okay, you're going to run a sale that's 70 up to 70% off, but so did everyone else. Now you're caught in the sea of sameness. But being able to have your targeted ads for very specific personas is probably what's going to get you out of that. But it takes more time. It's there's no easy way out on that one because you're not just creating one creative. You're doing a massive mapping out of how the creative is going to flow. So the caution to me would be just to say that using the same like ads every time, you got to freshen them up. If you're going to recycle October's ads from last year, freshen those up as well. But go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback on what Cody was saying with the differentiation. I mean, it's so critical. There is a sea of sameness. In fact, our research says that that main consumer I was mentioned to you, that value-driven skeptic, that persona, 75% of those individuals who represent 40% of furniture buyers say that 75% of them say that all ads sound the same. So we got to differentiate ourselves. We need to stop shouting about price. We need to stop just showcasing a dining room set or a sofa. We need to bring that joy back in and talk about that comfort and the experiences and lean into the emotion and the style that people are looking for. I know you got to have a CTA, and those are important. We got to have those, right? Lean into discounts, not financing right now. But outside of those like key sale months, Labor Day, Black Friday, etc., let's let's look at why people should shop us. That'll be a big differentiator. And also test your ads. Find out, do
Absolutely.
people think they all sound the same? Are they motivating people to actually come into the store? Those are all things we can find out for you. And we test thousands of ads at Elevate. I have a scatter plot that has examples of those that work better than others. So if anybody ever wants to see what that might look like, you can just reach out to me direct and we can go through that together. But like test your ads, lean into the things that differentiate yourself. And yeah, the practice that Cody mentioned with that book is probably a good way to do that. So is interviewing your consumers.
Yeah, and
Just
it's
a
like
tag on that. The two things that are working well right now in terms of what we see on response on ads is anything motion and anything sound. So, if it's, but just basically you know what your floor plan is. Those are what people are really gravitating towards. I can split test everything, and if I have a motion or a sound type furniture product in there, it will outpace anything. It seems to be where the buyers are going right now. Um, so like, your soundstage recliner versus a regular recliner, the soundstage is gonna, that Bluetooth speakers in a chair or Mega Motion or something like that is gonna do, a little bit better than a regular recliner that you're pushing out. It's just people want to see what's out there, the new technology. We have new technology in furniture. I mean, now we have sound in recliners. That's awesome. I'll be getting that soon. you know, so just some things that I'm seeing as well.
So we've talked about so much, and this has been fantastic discussion. I feel like we've uncovered at least as many questions as answers today, which is wonderful. We're running out of time. If could each of you say if after people log off of this, if they left this screen and went and did one thing, what would be the one thing you would tell them to do first?
Mm,
I'll start.
it's a good
Go
one.
for it.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I would say know your why. I've said it a couple times. Know your why. My founder here at Elevate, who does a lot of consulting in the space beyond just the research that we do, tells her clients, ask yourself at least 3 times, why? Why does that matter? And until you are very clear on what that message is, keep going back and figuring that out. So know your why. And from there, you'll be able to differentiate and you'll see a stronger return in any advertising that you're doing.
Wonderful. Okay.
Mine would be draw a triangle and build your marketing funnel. Write down everything you're buying right now. It's going to take you 15 minutes, maybe less than an hour to know how big you are. But write down all your marketing products, stack them out and see where you're sitting. How much money, where's the money laying? Because you might have to make that adjustment today versus, oh, I'll wait till next month or next quarter. Our quarter's already planned out. Well, next quarter starts here in like, 6 days. So we might want to make a readjustment today, looking at it. So you have your radio, TV, newspaper, so forth. And we have our middle stuff, OTT, connected television, retargeting pieces, and our bottom funnels, Google and meta dynamics and things like that. Where's that money stack out? And then really look at it and see if you have to make shifts. Because you're going to have to be efficient with your money for the next 30 days. One last point. Go ahead. I'm going to jump on one last point, Cody, after this.
Yeah, I would just say it's the advice I give literally every single retailer because so few do it is take your point of sale data and remarket to those people on social media. Period. I've personally I've worked with 300 location retailers all the way down to one. Like I've never seen anybody do it effectively, and it's so simple. You literally just take your point of sale data into a CSV file and you can upload that into we focus on Facebook and Instagram. It matches it to profiles and you can place ads in front of those people. It's that simple.
Store traffic campaigns to, if it's automated, it
Yeah.
has the money tied to your campaign. Yep.
And it's just, everybody knows that it costs less to reacquire an existing than it does to get a brand new one. And yes, the sales cycles for furniture are, years potentially before somebody's going to come back in. But with most of you probably having tens of thousands plus customers in your point of sale, a lot of those people are going to be back in market a different period. So that would be my piece of advice is just take your point of sale data, put it into a CSV file, look up custom audience specifically to Facebook, upload that, turns it into an audience that you can then advertise to. So really, really simple.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
My last point here for everyone on the call is pay attention to what's going to happen in your market in terms of the advertising now through the end of October. Last year, the last week of October, a lot of big furniture retailers jumped early right before Halloween and started doing a pre-Black Friday sale. Black Friday typically we're November in our head, but a lot of people are going to jump early. So stay on top of what's being put out there in the market because Black Friday, it's a whole month long of November, right? So we at the last week of November is Black Friday. So we have 4 full weeks, but we're going to be caught in October what's going on. So pay attention to what your competitors are doing out there in the market.
Consumers have become used to tentpole events spreading out over very long periods of time, and their shopping behavior, there's just an assumption on their part that they can access that value over a much longer period of time. It's not a day anymore. It's not a week. It's not a weekend, whatever it might be.
We're at 7-week Black Friday coming up.
It's well, thank you. This is a fantastic panel and some just wonderful discussion today. I know how busy all of you are, and I really appreciate you making time for us and for our audience today. We also want to thank Synchrony, our sponsor for these webinars. And I'm sure many of you have left with practical ideas to evaluate your media mix, budget smarter, and create campaigns that truly stand out. Or at least you know where to start asking the questions so you can take this a lot further than we could possibly cover in just an hour. Before you go, Don't forget to complete the post-webinar survey. You'll receive a link shortly. And if you'd like to revisit any part of today's discussion, the recording will be available soon. Our next webinar is Thursday, October 16th, and that webinar will be about improving your inventory buying decisions, another key driver of retail success. Until then, thanks for tuning in and trusting HFA to support your success. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.